All right. So content management systems, they are very important. They are the bridge between the code that we see on the back end of the website and the browsers that we all spend hundreds of hours viewing every year, maybe thousands. I'm here with Andrew Kumar, and we're here to talk about content management systems and where they're going to be in digital products in the next couple of years. My name is Justin Wood. This is the Katalog, and we talk about what digital products can be. On this episode, we're going to be talking about what content management and digital publishing can be. And so I have Andrew here, and yeah.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. We've spent a lot of time in our career talking about content management systems.
Yep.
I started my career with Blogger.
Oh,
remember Blogger?
Yeah, Google product. Well,
yeah.
Eventually a Google product.
Yeah, and the Web 2.0.
Yep, I remember that term. Yep.
Yeah. Which web point are we in now? 3.0, 5.0?
There's probably still a little bit of 2.0, 3.0. I don't
2.5.
2 point something, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, Andrew, you're at Uniform. Do you want to maybe tell me a little bit about what Uniform does in the content management space, and what your role is there?
Yeah. So Uniform's great around. We call it a visual workspace. It's kind of a cool term that we rebranded to some point last year. And the reason we call it that is it's this visual builder. It's all the tooling is visual. You go in, you can kind of see what your website or your app or your kiosk screen looks like on your screen, and then you can start to move things around in this visual design type of way. And then really we have a content management capability, which is pretty new, but all of my founders, they come from a long history of CMS companies and have founded or worked at and built content management systems. A lot of my colleagues, we work together at Contentful building a content management system. I had this one there. So we kind of have this cluster of industry veterans. So for us to make a CMS was a pretty natural progression because we have that expertise. So what we're doing now is we're marrying this visual tooling, this visual builder, and we're underpinning it with some content management capability. And I think one of the cool things, and I was showing you earlier, what excites me is we're kind of starting from an assumption that most companies have one, if not many, content management systems. Sometimes it's a Google Sheet, sometimes it's a Notion doc, sometimes it's an Airtable, but there's content in there, and they need to get it in some way, shape, or form in front of a customer, so we can start to retrieve and pull from those sources, just like we would any other headless content management system or a AEM or a Sitecore. And then we have our own kind of fallback capability. So you have a tremendous amount of flexibility. So that's what excites me about this kind of future of content management systems and this notion of, you're going to hear me say coexist a lot in 2024. But yeah, that's in a nutshell. Visual workspace for digital teams, designers, developers, content operators, content authors, just a space for everyone to kind of come together, get the job done.
Bring all their tools together. It's called Uniform.
It's called Uniform.
So it's like bringing some uniform to all these tools that we have that we're working in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. And before we were talking, I was just thinking okay, why? Who's using website? What is a website in 2024? Right. You see so much content going on to platform, to YouTube, to TikTok. Why is it important to have a website in the year 2024?
So I think the challenge with a lot of the platforms is you don't own that content, and if they delete the content, you're kind of hooped, right? Or if it gets flagged or something. So having some longevity is important. And then also, if you think about search doesn't necessarily go into a gated platform. You can't, Google is not indexing what's happening in Facebook. So, but they are, YouTube's a pretty strong search.
Well, they're the same. It's the same company.
It's
the second biggest search platform. Right?
Yeah. So I think when we think about the use cases, there are still people looking for things. They're getting information. They're looking for products and services. They have some sort of pain. They're like, how do I solve this?
But where do they end up, right? If you even get to the point where you're going to buy something, you're going to end up on a website, right?
A website or marketplace, right? You can go to Amazon, but again, Amazon kind of locks you in once you're in the Amazon ecosystem. So if you want a lot of brands kind of started with Amazon, then the fees start to rack up, and then they go back to direct to consumer. So now they have to build a site. Now they have to put their own products and services. They have to promote themselves because
What I say to people is you're partying in somebody else's. You're renting it out, right? Your website is the one space that you can own on the internet.
Yeah.
Right. So, why you should invest in that the most out of everything, right? The other things you can promote on them, and that's where the eyeballs are. But at the end of the day, you want those eyeballs back into your website, because that's a place where you can also control the experience, right?
So I use this analogy, like retail stores used to have like a flagship store. Like that's like their top of the line store, the coolest design, and it's something they're very proud of. Today, your flagship store is your website, and it's open 24/7. So that shift happened. Like it happened it started to happen before COVID. It definitely accelerated during COVID. So like I'm not going downtown New York, Times Square to someone's flagship location. I'm not going to Eaton Center. That I'm the .com, like that website is now the flagship store. So if you take that type of approach, you should want to invest in your web presence like you would your flagship store. Plus, like, if you think about the other reasons people use websites, like often to get information, like I don't want to call a call center. It's not happening. I don't even want to deal with your chatbot. Like I just want to search and find, like, so if you have a knowledge base on your website, I'm probably going to use it to try to solve my own problem in minutes rather than have to deal with that long wait time. I'm not going to go into a retail store to get help. Like if I can go find that information in self-serve. So on the business side, there's this term of like case deflection or call center deflection. Like trying to solve some of those problems before someone calls a call center or goes into a retail location. Like that has a tremendous amount of business value, but it makes the customer so much happier to not be waiting or having to deal with something like that, right? Like,
and it's even like the one use case is just on a website. Like I need help with something, but what about self-service as well, right? And that's where the website now has a login, and now it's a web application.
Yeah.
Right. So self-service, it sounds like an old thing, but how many people are really getting it right now?
So we were talking about personalization earlier, and I want to tie this back to login, because I was talking to a customer where they're in the continent, all 50 states, right? And so if you've logged in, they know who you are for the next 90 days. Like that is stored in your local browser. So like we can use that login to determine, okay, well, this customer's in Florida and this customer's in Seattle. Seattle, it's raining and maybe even snowing, so you're gonna feature and promote umbrellas or winter boots. But in Florida, it's still like flip-flops and sandals and shorts, right? It's like, so you know that about me, so you better not be showing me winter boots in Florida.
You're basically putting Netflix into the website. The Netflix, like, this is what you want algorithm into that level of personalization onto the website as well, right?
I think this is becoming the demand of consumers. It's like, I've given you my information, so I want an experience that's curated for me. It's anticipatory of my needs, and it's relevant. Like we're in Toronto, I don't want to see flip flops and sandals right now. There's no way I'm in the market for that today. It's just right.
Yeah.
But in a couple of months, I will be. Just so when it warms up.
And that experience, again, you're talking about a tailored experience. That's not something you can go to TikTok, or you can't call up Mark Zuckerberg and say, I want that in my Facebook store. Right.
Right. They're going to show what's trending and but like that trending could be globally. It may not be regional or local. So it's
going to go to the highest bidder.
And whoever's paying the highest cost per click or customer acquisition cost. Right. Yeah. So for all of these reasons, right, I think websites, web apps, and mobile apps are still 90% of most business value drivers.
Yeah, that's very true. even like the younger like people that are really doing all their buying on TikTok, and oh God, I can't believe I said younger generation. Kids these days. These kids on their TikTok. But and even with tools like ChatGPT, right? I'm gonna be blown away when I can plan a whole excursion, and it's gonna tell me when I can do it in the rain or in the snow, like. Yep. But that context, you're still there's still an element of trust that your website equals your brand, right? That's your like you said, your house. That's your flagship store. That when you invite them in, you want to build that experience around them, right? So, okay, website builders. There's tons out there. You got everything from your WordPress to your Wix to there's solutions for everybody. But if you're a bigger brand and you've grown a massive enterprise, it gets like who's working on the website becomes a big question, right? Because you have a lot of different tools, you have a lot of different people, you have a lot of different job functions. So I guess my question is like, who should be responsible for updating a website?
Well, so I'm biased, right? I work for a platform tool where we say everyone who's customer facing has the intelligence to update a website. But realistically, it's Gartner, one of the analyst firms, they coined this term called a citizen developer. So it's like someone in an organization who's technical but doesn't write code. But they can still edit, update, and maintain and add value to a website. So often it's, you have your developers, but if you think about designers can update websites now, UX, and content managers, content operators, merchandisers, marketers. There's a business analyst, product managers.
What about Webmaster? Do we still have webmasters, or are they?
I don't think so. Right?
You haven't run into a webmaster.
I have not seen that title in a very long time. That's kind of a throwback to the world when an IT org ran a website, and there are still some companies where IT runs a website, but generally it's more of a.
But you have product, you have customer service, you have marketers, you have and
there's no reason why they can't, but oftentimes there's some limitation in place, whether it's technology or tools or process. But realistically, that's this notion of no code and you'll start to have these gurus using no code tools that will be empowered. And again, I'm biased because I work for one of these no code tools, so we want more and more. Like I remember working for one of the heavy duty, like the AEMs or the Sitecores or Optimizely's of the world. When you look at the people logging in and managing the website and those old tools, in an enterprise of like 10 to 20,000 people, there might only be 10 people trained on how to operate that tool to build a website. But then when we look at opening and empowering and with no code tools, it's not just locked into those 10 people that have been trained. Now you can have a couple hundred authors logged in. So one of my former employers, large telco, and on a Black Friday, Cyber Monday type of event, we might have 500 people logged into our CMS to make tweaks and updates and changes because we've modernized their stack over time and empowered who actually logs in to make changes. Yeah. But the business moves that much faster. Like imagine if you have 10 people versus 500 people that are all operating autonomously with confidence, with guardrails in place, like that the ROI on those 500 people is going to be exponentially higher than this kind of 10-person specialized team.
Yeah, and that's really like when you get to the website, that's really your high intent buyer, right? Yeah. That's the person who's they've done the research, they've seen the ad, they know they want this thing, and they're just about to buy it. So like the amount of ad spend dollars that come into getting someone to that point, you want to like you said, you want to optimize that as much as possible. Yep. And you want the marketing message to tie in with how the product is being built in a builder tool, and you want the experience to be easy to buy and have products that are updated in the database. So you don't want to be sending people to something that's not available too, right?
That's the worst. Because you're lighting money on fire at that point. And if you think about, so it all comes back down to content, right? Like you want to get the right content in front of the right person at the right time. And the subject matter expert of that content is often not a developer. It's often someone in marketing or product who knows product in and out, and they should be empowered to represent the product accurately. And because like I always think about like different stages of someone hitting your website. If they're browsing, they're kind of looking at your blogs, looking at your marketing site, looking at your landing pages. But then when they're ready to buy, which can happen pretty quickly, they get into like a collection page or a product details page where they're evaluating like, oh, you have this microphone over here and this microphone over here. I'm trying to pick which of my two options. So that's where I call like you've now shifted from browse to buy. Mm-hmm. And then you add it to cart. And then after you've made your purchase, you have care. So, okay, send me or help me find support articles to make sure I'm maximizing what I've purchased, or, oh, something's not working. What's my warranty or repair? Like, so you have kind of these sections of browse, buy, care.
And of those sections, you're probably passing through 4 or 5 different systems along the way, right?
We hope not, but realistically, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Like different, because the content and the data is stored in different systems, managed by different departments.
You're going to have the landing page that the design and marketing team makes it all beautiful, and it's got transitions that are flying around. And then you're going to go to the cart page that's going to be a standardized Shopify cart.
Yeah.
That's then going to link to the Shopify app, right? So how do we manage all the content throughout those and keep them, consistent along the way, right?
So I'm going to come back to this term of coexist, right?
Yeah.
And because you're right, like this tends to live across different tools, different platforms. The first thing I ask my customers is when they're picking tools to make sure there's an API available. Mm-hmm. If there's no API, you're basically locked. If there is an API, okay, then we can kind of extend and pull things together, because the customer doesn't actually care how many tools are under the hood. They just want a good experience. Mm-hmm. And if you make them transition from a nice marketing page to a kind of crappy e-commerce experience to an even crappier knowledge base or self-support portal, like they're gonna get upset along the way. Like,
yeah, and any thought of, I don't really trust this thing becomes like, well, I'll put it off to later. I'll buy it later.
Conversion killer.
Yeah, exactly.
You spend all that ad dollars or email marketing to get someone there, and then they lose the trust because something's kind of janky. And so, So I this is, we're talking about kind of content management. And so having consistent content across that journey is quite important. And that's why I've kind of navigated my way into more of the headless systems, because it gives you that flexibility to seed content into the right spots. That's why I work at a platform that has some headless capabilities and some tooling to preview and visualize. But ultimately, it's like, can I make the customer happy? Yes or no? Okay. Can I provide tooling to the people in the business so that they can go make the customer happy? Okay, yes. And then what does the business do? Well, they're just kind of, ring the cash register at that point.
Yeah.
It's like, I have a customer with these high demands. My team has the tools to meet those demands. The business is satisfied.
So what's like the ideal workflow for delivering a good content experience? How do you kind of unite all these teams and getting them working on that level where you're really getting the most out of every unique visitor that comes into that page? Like, obviously there's tools to do things, but what's the ideal workflow with those tools?
Yeah. So you're familiar with like the jobs to be done?
Yeah.
So like, I always think like that's my framing. It's like, what are the jobs to be done from a hypothesis or an idea all the way to an experience in front of a customer? And in that stages, you start with your hypothesis, you go gather some data. So there's someone there going to validate that the hypothesis is true. Then you're building some sort of test experience or a prototype. So you have your designers designing, you have your content people filling the design with some content. So those are jobs to be done. You might do some user testing, mm-hmm. right? And then to kind of have a small group validate the test. Then you shift it over to a platform like Uniform, where you can build that prototype in clicks. If you already have the components in your system, then you're just dragging and dropping them, and you're plugging them onto your page, inserting the content, hitting publish, and then you're monitoring. Mm-hmm. And then, are your conversion rates going up? Are your churn or bounce is going down, you're testing whatever your metric is to meet that hypothesis. So these are different jobs to be done, and ultimately you might have to go back and make a change and iterate.
And you also want to make sure that if you do invest in building that out, that it's also going to be scalable as well. That it's going to be real data that's coming from real sources, and it's integrating with that as well, right?
Yeah, and earlier I was showing you that, like, okay, we could take a UTM parameter because we have an email campaign out in market, or we have an ad out in market. When someone hits the site with that UTM parameter, they shouldn't just see your generic page. We actually know they came in through a campaign. So let's flip all the banners to match that campaign. Let's modify their experience or change maybe the order of things so that they have an experience when they hit the site, they're actually already curated to what the campaign was promoting, because it'll just make the end consumer or the end user their life that much easier. They don't have to click around and find things anymore.
Yeah, that's really like so cool, because I always think about that when we're doing advertising, especially in e-commerce. It's like, there's bundles and packages of things. Like and do you really need to build out a custom builder tool or something like that? Or why don't you just, serve products in a bundle in a way like that? But that's what people really want. They want like easy click. You've understood me from the advertisement all the way down to the cart. Yeah. Not like, oh, you understood one part and then I have to go and mess around with a bunch of, tools, sliders to get what I want. Right. Yeah.
Some people like that. They feel like they have some skin in the game if it's a complex product, but like if it's a simple product, just because the other benefit of having this type of intelligence meets content is customer effort reduction. Like I can make my purchase and go back to my day. Like, cool, right? Like because it's the lowering the friction for me to get my job done, because customers themselves also have a job to be done. Yeah. Right. Like I don't know. It's like I always joke that whenever my kids need something, I just go out and buy it. Like it's not even a thought.
You have daughters?
I have a son and a daughter.
Son and a daughter. Yeah.
But like my soccer boots are getting kind of old, so I'm humming and hawing of like, oh, I gotta go buy this. I don't want to put in the work for myself. Yeah. So if you remove the friction, if I can find something easy and fast, I'm probably just gonna pull the trigger and make that purchase, and then I'm, if the cost doesn't.
Yeah, any little snag along the way is gonna be like, it's gonna just be that hesitation point. What we really need to get to is a society where we're just mindlessly consuming at massive ease, right?
We kind of
is that what we really want? Are we the goodies or the baddies?
We kind of had that when we would go into retail locations, and someone on that side would have expertise in what they're selling you. Mm-hmm. So we would go back in the day. You could go into a sport check and be like, I need basketball shoes. Like, show me what's good. And that person played basketball and will show you what's good. Yeah. Today, you go into a sport check, you're not gonna find anybody. Mm-hmm. There's no good luck finding someone to help you. Or if someone helps you, they have no idea. They're just
right? In the online world, it's up to you, right? So and how are you going to come to that conclusion? It's through the other content that is being. Yes. It's the TikTok video that shows somebody like doing some sweet dunks. Oh, what shoes are those? Oh, it's the blog content that shows you like the top best things that year.
Top
right?
10. I am looking for basketball shoes. The top 10 basketball shoes of 2024. Yeah. Something I Googled recently, and like that blog content helped me, or it's helping me. I haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet, but it's helping me. Right? Yeah. Like so that's content that used to be, I used to go ask someone, but now I need to go do that research myself. So having that content, having that experience closer together makes my life easier. Then I can get my path to purchase that much faster. So I don't know if it's gonna be like mindless and super easy, but lower friction. Yeah. I still want to do a little bit of research. I want to make sure I'm buying the right thing,
Yeah, and the thing is too is like, how do you, the experience between web, like in a browser, into an app as well, and into, I don't know, my Apple Vision Pro that I'm walking around with now, like
nice.
No, don't really have one.
Okay. Yeah. When you have one, make sure you get the Dyson headphones with the mouth guard. So then you have the mouth guard and the Apple Vision Pro. I will not be seen in public with you, but you will look very cool.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's also that content experience has to go across applications as well, right? And I don't think we're even close to being there yet, are we?
It depends, right? If we start, because one of the trends, it's still pretty early, but treating websites like web apps where they have authentication and then you have, so if you look at a website and then you're logged in and then you translate to your mobile device and you're still logged in and then you're on your Apple Vision and you're logged in, we have that. We know what you're interested in and we can start to curate your experience so you don't see 1,000 items in your collection. You see the 10 that are relevant to you. Mm-hmm. That tends to make people happy. It's like, I don't have to waste time. Have you ever been to like an e-commerce collection and you're like, oh, I have to sift and sort and filter.
And then I have to go do it again after I get the remarketing ad somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to go reconfigure these sneakers, or I need to, if it was just kind of like knowing across platform, it'd be like, yo, you built this. This is how it was built for you, is now coming with you along your ride, right?
So we're talking about basketball shoes, right? Like, you wouldn't believe how many times I go to a site and it's like, oh, here's some size 5 women's basketball shoes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why are you showing me this? I've been to your site 4 times now. Why am I this is just annoying me at this point. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do a little lightning round.
Let's do it.
I'm going to quiz you on some people and which CMSs they should select. So I'm going to go backwards.
Sure.
Backwards in time. So I'm a growing startup with $2 million in revenue. What should I be using to publish my website on?
So I'd say like it kind of depends. Like if the primary purpose is like landing pages, getting something cool out the door, then a tool like Webflow is very, very handy. But if it's like more content marketing, you want to have an email list. Have you heard of Ghost?
It's come up a couple of times with me. Yeah.
A big fan of Ghost because you can kind of track users, see you can gate content. It has some nice creator features. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'd land in one of those two tools.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about a photographer with their portfolio?
So there are like photography specific content management systems. I feel like they're a little bit baked in. So I would still kind of lean to Ghost because then you can add subscribers, you can add blocked off contents and gated content for your photography portfolio. But you could also use, like, there are some, so I got a couple friends that are photographers and I built their website just using a Next.js application with Cloudinary. Okay. So Cloudinary is a digital asset management tool. They go in, they upload their photos. Every time they upload a photo, we read from the API, it rebuilds the site. So they don't have to worry about content management at all. They just upload photos, neatly organized.
Throw the SD card to like get them done and then just drop them in.
Yeah, and the website auto rebuilds, and it's part of the system that I set up for them. Is the argument is like no one cares who you are. They just want to flick through photos.
Yeah.
So the whole front end is just like I can scroll, I can see a grid of photos that are really cool, and then if I'm interested, I hit the contact button.
You still think of it, not just Instagram. They should have a website still.
They should have a website because the main difference too is for SEO. If I'm looking for like a photographer in Oakville, Instagram's you're not gonna get picked up.
Yeah, good call. All right, multinational bank.
So I'd say it depends because a multinational bank will probably have many different CMSs or many different data sources. I'm biased. I'd say all multinational banks should be using Uniform, but Uniform will be part of the kit. They'll probably have an AEM or a Sitecore, an Optimizely, or a Contentful, or one of the headless tools under the hood, and we'll mix and match. And that way you can have your AM and your Contentful and your Uniform sitting together. It's and different departments might have different needs. So I would say a multinational will have a collection of tools, but that's often what I have seen in that type of giant bank.
Yeah, but something that understands these tools, brings them together, and like gives more people more access to that content. Yeah. Cool. And then Lizard Enthusiast site and store.
So the store part has me leaning towards like a Shopify or a BigCommerce. And like there is some content management capabilities in Shopify. They've also partnered and invested in Sanity. So
Okay.
you can kind of mix and match and bring a combination of tools together. BigCommerce recently acquired a tool called MakeSwift. So they have some capability as well. But ultimately, it's like, how can I have content and commerce tied together? And because it's a lizard enthusiast, like when they start hitting like a proper amount of GMV, and they will grad. I use the term Shopify graduates.
Okay.
There are some businesses that do very well, and then they hit all the limitations of Shopify, and then they need to graduate onto something next. That's usually when we try to pull them over to Uniform and say, okay, you're gonna pop some of your stuff in Shopify because that cart and checkout experience
It's
with,
great.
with Shop Pay is amazing.
Yeah.
But like the front end is not the greatest, and you can't mix and match editorial content.
Yeah, that's usually where I find that Shopify users. I like the term Shopify graduate because they're just like, okay, I've built a brand. Like people are buying my stuff now. Now I need to build a brand. What do I need to do to build a brand? I need to make content. I need to make collections. I need to bring lifestyle stories into it.
Editorial content, and I don't want it to look like every other Shopify template site that's out there because all Shopify sites look the same.
Yeah.
So that's usually but but the Shopify's APIs are still quite good. So you graduate to Shopify Plus, you start adding in other tools, and you can actually build a really nice, powerful ecosystem. It's only when you start to get into like the larger enterprises where you might want to decouple everything and switch to a commerce layer or a commerce tools or a Salesforce Commerce Cloud, the big heavy duty. But like you kind of need thousands of SKUs to pull that off. So I don't think a lizard enthusiast site's going to get there.
True. Well, yeah, that's great. I could talk about content management systems for a long time, but yeah, thanks for coming in. And where can people find out more about Uniform if they're interested?
Uniform.dev.
Dev?
That is our URL.
Yeah.
And
you wouldn't recommend anything other than a website because that's your home on the internet, right?
that's where to go. We do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of traction and a lot of attention is spent on LinkedIn. But we always redirect people back to uniform.dev, our resources, our blog.
And you guys have stuff where people can play around with stuff too, have documentation, stuff like that.
Yeah, we have full on docs. We have demo environments, sandboxes.
Cool.
A lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you on the next one, guys.
Sounds good.